In this episode, it is my privilege to introduce you all to Lori Woodley, a speaker, author, and trainer who, along with her daughter, has founded the non-profit organization All It Takes, an organization which equips youth with essential social, emotional skills that will help them to navigate their lives and support their communities.
I was that painfully shy, don't call on me in class. I don't think I have any friends. I don't relate to anybody. It took me a long time through high school and college to start to recognize that I was the pattern. How do I go out and reach for my dreams if I don't believe I'm worthy of them? It's those soft skills, critical skills that are the underbelly for us to all live thriving lives. And it's those skills that I'm committed to making a difference. With youth to adult, I was 22 before I knew I had a talent. And everything we do has...
In this episode, it is my privilege to introduce you all to Lori Woodley, a speaker, author, and trainer who, along with her son and daughter, Tana and Shailene, has founded the non-profit organization All It Takes. All It Takes is an organization which equips youth with essential social, emotional skills that will help them to navigate their lives and support their communities. Over the years, Lori has become a dear friend and mentor of mine. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity to connect with Lori and share some of the life-changing work she is doing in the world. I am beyond grateful that we have crossed paths and to have Lori as part of my community. She is most definitely my kind of person, and I have no doubts that she will be your kind of person too. So welcome to the podcast, Lori Woodley.
Meg, thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction and welcome. And you call me your mentor. Well, come on, girl, you're mine, right? Like you are my kind of people. And, it was the greatest gift to be able to see you before this pandemic hit a little over a year ago in the UK. Yeah. And I'm grateful to see you this way right now. I guess however we get to see each other is a blessing every time.
I know, across the ocean. And thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Like you said, it's a great excuse to catch up because it's definitely been a minute. I think the pandemic has most definitely thrown a curveball in long distance friendships.
So it definitely has,
yeah. This is
in all friendships, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the curveball could be a good curveball or it could be not, right? Like, I think it's just what it is just not what we knew before.
Exactly.
Whether it feels better or feels worse, it's just not what it used to feel.
Exactly. But we're innovating, we're Zooming, and I'm so grateful to have you in my orbit and connecting today. So thank you so much. And I think a good place to start is probably to tell the listeners how we crossed paths. So would you be able to share some light on how we met? How did you end up with this odd British woman in your life, Lori?
You mean this fun, organic, fabulous British person in my life? Oh my gosh. So, well, Meg, we met through, Jimmy Robinson and Canyon Creek, where I know you'd been connected to them for much longer than we had been. Mm-hmm. And you were in one of your visits. Unfortunately for me, I heard after I got to know you that it was a visit and you were just not here all the time. But boy, we were so happy to take all that we could of you. And Jimmy said, you have to meet this person. Like, you're working with kids and you're with them and she's your kind of people, you have to meet Meg. And, you were a yes, right? You just said, Jimmy, I trust you. I don't know who this woman is or what this All It Takes is or what they're doing on schools or here at Canyon Creek. And you were a yes. And my kind of people say yes to new opportunities. And that's how we met. And I will be forever grateful.
Likewise. And thank you. That's very complimentary. And means a lot.
It's what it is.
It means a lot, especially because I admire both you and Jimmy so much. And both Canyon Creek and All It Takes has done so much for me in terms of empowerment and inspiration. And it's been an absolute privilege to have a few opportunities to be a fly on the wall and witness the incredible work you're doing with the youths and the communities around them. And before we learn a little bit more about All It Takes, I would love for the community to get to know more about you as a person. So where have you grown and flown? Where did you grow up, and where would you consider home now?
Well, I grew up where I currently live in Simi Valley, California. I have been here 50 of my 55 years. And, it is home. And it's also, my community is global. My community is where my feet take me and where the blessings of all I make eye contact with, now virtually or before in person. That's my home. And I mean, my pillow is in Simi Valley and my home is wherever my feet take me. And I've been really blessed to have a lot of opportunities to visit different places, to know different people and their cultures and what drives them and what motivates them, inspires them, what hurts them, what pains them. And just to be a part of learning in a global community is home.
What a beautiful answer. I love that. And yeah, what a special journey. So from being in Simi Valley to all of these wonderful places in between and back again, where did you start to develop your passion for youth leadership and sustainable positive change? Has that always been a passion of yours? And when did that become a main focus for you?
So, that's a journey where you look back at our lives and look at pivotal points. And I actually think I look back, and it's an interesting thing that I didn't really recognize until, this word privilege and the concept of privilege really became something that not only was I absorbing and learning, but also, facilitating others to learn. And I can look back to like being 7, 8, 9 years old and really understanding as a young girl in Simi Valley, my privilege, which is so interesting because like I used to feel bad about where I lived. Like I had this interesting cognitive understanding that I don't know that I was taught. Like that's one of those weird things you look back and you're like, where did that come from? I don't even know. But I would cry myself to sleep, I think for a couple of years regularly, understanding and really questioning, why was I born in the United States? Why was I born in California? Why was I born in Simi Valley? Why do I have two parents? And I had, kind of a normal lower middle class, but solid, safe food, housing, upbringing with two parents. And so I look back and I think something in me then decided that I needed to understand more about others. And I needed to understand more about where others were coming from. And then I also lived a really quiet, introverted, petrified life.
Yeah.
Not because I was like lots of us are hurt in a lot of ways, but not because I was like looking over my shoulder because I had been physically hurt, but I was that painfully shy, don't call on me in class. I don't think I have any friends. I don't relate to anybody. Like it was an interesting childhood. When I put the pieces together, it doesn't make sense. Like I had good parents, but I was just wired kind of terrified and also unworthy. But that was in my head, right? Nobody said you're not worthy. Somehow I wrote that about myself. And it took me a long time through high school and college to start to recognize that I was the pattern, right? That I was writing something about myself that didn't have to be true. And yes, there's reasons, and yes, there's stories, and things happen, and we write story, right? But I literally somewhere along the way, and I can think of a couple instances and those key moments or key people who say something, you're like, yeah, that really changed everything for me. And then hard moments, losing my dad. I mean, my dad came home to die the day my daughter came home to live. And how do you make sense of that, right? She was born and he came, and so there's just life events that we all have that change us. And there was a determination for me that I was going to take in the changes as something that I could grow from, and that I was going to help others not feel so incapable of embracing their self-worth, so incapable of finding their voice. And so I went into school counseling. I was there 28 years in public school as a school counselor. Mm-hmm. And along the way, I started finding this massive success with some unique thinking strategies that I had. Mm-hmm. And then 10 years ago, founded the nonprofit, founded it originally with, mostly my daughter, and now my son works with us. And we just didn't look back. So here we are making a difference, because I believe that the underbelly skills for us to live thriving, successful, as we define it, not anybody else, just our own individual definition of success, comes only when we have what others call soft skills. I think they're critical skills underneath, right? Like, how do I go out and reach for my dreams if I don't believe I'm worthy of them?
Yeah.
How do I go out and take on a courageous conversation to correct something that feels bad if I don't think my voice matters? Or I can't find it. Like, I might cognitively know my voice matters, but I'm petrified to use it.
Yeah.
So it's those soft skills, critical skills that are the underbelly for us to all live thriving lives. And it's those skills that I'm committed to making a difference with youth to adult, and youth is primary, our focus, but we're working with a lot of parents and teachers and some corporations, because the skills are not something that only a 10-year-old needs.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to find appreciation and gratitude, even in the hard moments, isn't a skill that is assigned an age.
It's not exclusive, no.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of my history.
Yeah, and what an incredible history you have. And I think it's amazing that you're saying when you're younger, you didn't feel like you connected to people, yet you seem to be so connected with the world at large, really,
Yeah. And I think the difference was I was like emotionally and maybe spiritually connected, but not like earthly. Like, my disconnect was more of my fear.
Yeah.
My disconnect was my fear. It wasn't that it didn't exist. And yeah, people look at me now and think, you didn't want to talk when you were a teenager? Like, who are you? Who are you? Like, the evolving woman. That's who I am, right? We, can evolve if we take it on, right? And so that is something that I did. I took on what wasn't working, what still doesn't work, what still causes me pain or others pain because of me, because I'm not perfect. And, it is a journey, but I believe in the journey. I believe in the possibility. And I have found some really fun and successful ways to elevate others to believe the same for themselves. I was 22 before I knew I had a talent of any kind.
What, really?
And I read it, and yeah, because I knew internally, because I was that one at 11 that other people and adults were telling their life stories to, and you're like, why are you telling me this? Like, but I didn't see that as a talent. I just thought it was weird, and I was weird, right? And I didn't understand. I don't sing. I don't dance well. That guitar on your background there, like, I don't play. In fact, it's not a broken gene. It's a missing gene. I draw stick figures, right? So there's, math was hard. Like, it was all these things that are these things that everybody looks at and puts a stamp on. You're good at that. And my I had to read in a textbook in my bachelor's degree when it said that people who come naturally to empathy and compassion is a skill. I was like, oh, I have a talent. Literally, I have a talent, because I didn't know I had a talent.
Amazing. At 22 as well, you said.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been there with the confetti cannons.
I can't even tell you. I must have highlighted it and cried because it was a validation that I never felt before. And that was that was a moment, right? Like, wow, there is something special about me. And, in that pain, I think I look back, I'm like, I'm really committed to people finding they're special as young as they can.
Yeah.
So they can live a life that, is resilient and compassionate and joyful. That's what I'm committed to.
Yeah, and I can attest you are a very special person. So thank goodness for that textbook. I hope it's framed somewhere.
I don't even know. I think it was in a psychology class, I'm sure, and I didn't keep it, but I didn't forget it, right? I can read it. I can see it in my brain what that sentence said.
Absolutely. And wow, look at the work it's inspired since. And what do you mean by sustainable positive change? And why do you think that youth leadership programs are so important in helping achieve that?
So, sustainable positive change to me is that we don't just do something nice for ourselves or others. We don't just go, recycle one time. We don't just go and reach our hand out to elevate somebody else once. Mm-hmm. It's a journey of a commitment of a lifestyle to me. Right. And we all have we were talking about Peyton earlier, right? And his plants and my son Tanner's plants. That's not my lifestyle. I love to garden, but we all have our own thing or things. But it's bigger than just our thing. And everything we do has impact around us. Like 100% of the time, we're influencing everything around us. We're influencing others with our smile or our frown. We're influencing our relationships with our curtness or our warmth. We're influencing the planet with our disregard of, say, environmental, sustainability practices, or, every moment, every word, you're influencing me right now, and I'm influencing you. And your podcast influences thousands. And, we have to look at, in my view, sustainable positive change comes with a commitment to live a lifestyle that is meaningful and purposeful about being sustainable. And that life isn't just do the right thing, check a box, and you're forgiven. So for all the next things you do. No, it's check a box every day, all day long.
Yeah.
Check the box when you want to be rude and you be nice instead, check a box, but do it again and again. And that's sustainability, right? So the word sustainable was an important word for us to have in that descriptor, because too often we just do a worksheet, pass it along, and say, I did that.
Yeah. It's almost like performative.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a integration of ways of being. Individual for each of us. Your ways of being don't need to be my ways of being, but committing purposely, consciously to do that, instead of just kind of bumping through life, doing what you're supposed to do because the rules say so, but not because you really mean it. Going to work because it's a paycheck, not because I actually want to contribute or live happily on the team I'm working with, or, there's a very big difference between just kind of rolling with life and owning life.
No, I love how you summarize that as well, like most definitely. And it's continually showing up, right? But for yourself, most importantly, because if we're not showing up for ourselves, then we can't show up for others.
Right. And showing up for ourselves, I think, is sometimes the hardest thing.
Yep.
we don't look in the mirror, and the mirror sometimes is painful. And it's not about, the pimple on our face. The painful is like in our hearts, and like, ooh, I hurt that person, or I said that, and I regret that, and all that piece of regret. And, none of that serves us except for to learn, let it go, and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And from observing your work over the last few years, I found one of your many talents is team building. I think it's a sign of incredible leadership, as you really seem to manage to tap into people's strengths, and you've managed to both welcome and train a really incredible group of facilitators, or youth influencers, as you might like to call them. And these and these youth influencers really have become such important mentors and role models for the youth that they work with. And I know in a very short amount of time, you've become such a wonderful mentor to myself. So I'm intrigued to know if you've had any mentors along your journey. Are there any people that have inspired you on your life journey and have particularly inspired you to strive for positive change?
Oh, I think every day there's somebody in my life that, motivates me, inspires me to look at things differently, to believe, to keep up the work. My mom, my dad's been deceased for a really long time, but he was my hero. And then my mom, she's the matriarch of our family. And I look at the creative genius that she is, but what she holds in her capacity is to love, is so meaningful. She's so fun. I think that I know that when I look back in my childhood, that they gave me the base, of everything. And then through the years, professors, I could say I could say Jimmy, literally, like teachers I've had, friends I've had, colleagues in organizations I belong to, Evolutionary Business Council. Like, there are just these people on the planet who don't stop, and they believe in possibility and hope. And I cling to making sure that my orbit is made up mostly of those people. And, I start with my sister, what she's overcome in her life. Like, my family is huge. My kids, both of them, they're so very different. Shay's journey and commitment in the world and what she's accomplished is like completely always inspires me to know there's more and it's attainable.
Yeah.
My son's like commitment to like what he believes in and his passion, it is gritty passion. And so in that, I'm inspired to go the distance, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's too many people, but I want you to know that every day someone inspires me.
Every day. Yeah. Amazing. And as part of the reason I did the podcast is to show, like, we don't have to look very far at all to find people that can inspire us. And there's so many people creating positive change in the world. And it's just incredible. And what a beautiful family you've created as well. I've been fortunate to meet all three of you. And I'm like, I don't know what they're having for breakfast, but something good, because they're all these incredible positive change makers, and all three of you have inspired me on some level. And I love that you are taking what you've learned and empowering others. And I think it's what we need more of in the world. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, we need more in the world, right? But we just get to help people understand their value. Understand that they are they're an individual genius, part of a collective organism. And that both the individual and the collective matter, and that we are interconnected in that. But the individual can't be good for the collective if the individual isn't good for themselves.
So,
right. And the collective can't be good for the individuals if the collective is just looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
So, it's all interdependent. In all of our independence, we are so interdependent. And I love that web. I love the web of like, you and I are connected because of Jimmy, because of me losing, a site where we used to do our programming, and then the fires that were tragic, but burned that site down, which helped us be at Canyon Creek. And then there's you, and all that web of how we interconnect is so beautiful and fascinating. And oh man, we are we have a responsibility to be a positive part of the web.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's something that genuinely, it takes my breath away daily when I think about it, of how kind of connected we all are and how the universe brings people together. It blows my mind.
I can picture it. Do you ever picture it in your head? Like, I picture a web, like I'll think of somebody and then like, how did I get there with that person?
Yeah.
And what are all the blessings along the way? Even when we were hurtling over significant pain, there were still so many blessings to get us right here, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking just now about yourself and Tana and Shailene, and you are the founding family of All It Takes. So please, could you tell us a little bit more about how and when this was founded, and what do you hope it contributes to the world?
Yeah, I like to talk about All It Takes. So we founded it in 2010, and technically on record, Shailene and I founded it. And then quickly she got very busy and also really started to grow into passions that she cared about deeply. And just we weren't as able to be accessible to each other because of schedules. And so originally the whole thought on All It Takes, and the reason the name All It Takes is it took us 2 years to find a name. And I woke up one morning in August 2010 I woke up with that name on my brain.
I love it.
Because what we were looking for was a name that didn't pin anybody's passions into one way or another, right? So she was super environmentally focused and health focused. And I was super leadership and youth focused, because those were our interests, right? Now we both liked each part of each other's, but we each had our own, first position. And so quickly it was, Shay kind of went to do her thing, right? Which makes sense. She's 18, she's going off, she's doing her life, becoming the amazing woman that she is. And my passion was youth. And so we quickly just sort of dropped the two other pieces and just worked on youth because I was available and that was my expertise. But the name All It Takes has always been driven to be all it takes is, and you fill it in. So all it takes for Meg to live her genius in this world is what? And it's probably different for you than it's different than it's for me, right? Like playing music is one for you. It is not one for me, right? So but how do we, if we say all it takes is, to be kind, I mean, then that can sound like a cliche, but it's not. If we choose it to be purposeful and sustainable, which means we live into it every day. And when we mess up, we regroup and we start again. And that, and then finding, I just have to say this, I don't think I really share this. Like all it takes seems like somebody would have it, right? Like if you listen to people, once you think about all it takes, you hear them say it all the time. All it takes is da-da-da. It's just a general thing people say as a phrase without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And when I woke up to it, I instantly went to the web to look for the URL, which was not taken. And it hadn't been bought up by someone who thought it was a good idea and was now wanting to resell it for a couple $1,000s. It was $14.
The best.
And I'm like, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe. It was meant to be ours.
I was going to say the universe, no one had it because the universe had your name on it.
That's right. That's right. So that's how we got started. And the first few years I was working also in schools. About 5 years ago, I left to do this full time, which has been a journey on its own, not easy, and also not willing to give up on it. And so it's, for the most part, Tanner works for me or for us, and we have a small team and we continue to do magical things in the world.
You do. And I adore your team. And we talk about things magical. A lot of your team seem to have equal love for Harry Potter as I do. So
not the team of magic, not the leader here, but boy, the team does, boy. And I find it so fascinating and fun to listen to Harry Potter family to connect and then talk about it. And I'm just like, I have no idea what you're saying, but it is so fun to listen to it.
So probably not the magical you were meaning, but
No, yes, it is. Because again, we bring people together who then find things out about each other that they didn't know before, find commonalities, understand that there's more in common than not, and then be inspired to be interested in more humans.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because what is it? Like, I don't share Harry Potter fascination with you or my son, but I'm fascinated by your passion for it. So I'm genuinely interested in your passions, even if they're not my passions. Can you imagine the world and what it would be like if we were genuinely interested in other people's passions and we wanted to learn about them? What makes you tick? Yeah. So
absolutely. And that's what I love about All It Takes as well. It's not exclusive. It doesn't discriminate. And you really do serve every age from every background. And I think that's so important because, as we mentioned earlier, inspiration is everywhere. And like you said, you have a small team. So you only have a finite amount of time with people, right? So you can take youths out of their environment and you can provide them with an incredible weekend summit experience, which you do. And this no doubt has a profound effect on them. But I think the real test is then whether youths will continue to develop those skills once back in their environment for the other 362 days of the year.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think that shows the importance of the influence that our communities around us have on us and the role that they play in continuing to inspire us to create positive change. So that's something I think really is key. And I love that All It Takes really does put so much emphasis on that.
Yeah, I think of it as some of us will leave a program with a seed planted, and some of us will have the branches growing. Right? We're all taking what we can take in where we're at the moment with our capacity, our bandwidth, our background, our environment, where we're going home to. But what we do know for sure is that the skills are there.
Yeah.
And whether they're able to be generated on a moment-to-moment basis every minute, some kids are immediately and other kids are, it takes a little longer. Just the other day, I heard from the commander of a local police department who, I think 8 or 9 years ago, along with, he was an assistant commander then, and the commander at the time, who's now retired, the two of them with myself and another counselor in my district brought a program to the district we were in. And it was an All It Takes background. Like it was, an idea we built. We didn't, as All It Takes, actually facilitate it. It was hired to be facilitated by someone else because I was working in the district at the time. But just the other day, I was talking to this police commander, and he said that he had gotten on a Zoom, because that's what we do today, with a whole bunch of high school kids from the district. And they were talking about school, and he asked the question, like, what is one of your best memories, right? He was just trying to connect with these youth in his community that his, police force serve. And they, like, one young girl, one like senior or junior, said, this program I did in 5th grade called Stand Proud. So she's a junior or senior. And then he said, wow, well, let me tell you, it was me and my boss at the time, who now he's the boss, and 2 counselors in your district who brought that.
Wow.
And then he said, who else remembers? Who else has the sense that that program made a difference for them? And he said that 90% of the hands went up.
Amazing.
He was so moved that he sent me a text about it, because he's like, it's so nice to know that where you put effort, energy, commitment, and finances actually lived on. And they were able to tell him that they felt like their school was safer because of it. They were able to tell him that they operated differently in the world because of it. And, that's the kind of, you were talking about, is it sustainable?
Mm-hmm.
When you hit people in their hearts, when you give them an opportunity to experience something and then develop their own personal why, instead of telling them why, then it sticks. And our commitment is that we inspire people to find their why. Why do I want to be nice? Or why do I want to be persistent? Why do I want to work hard in school? Instead of being told you should because your future, they're like, blah, 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 blah. They just can't hear it. But if they can identify with it personally, then their future looks brighter.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. What a incredible moment that must have been for him as well. And
great to
he had.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, Woodley, you have to hear this. They still remember that program we did." Like, of course they do.
It's just amazing. And the template of all it takes is notice, choose, act. So please could you explain to us what this template is and what it can achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So our entire foundation runs on the concept that we can't do anything to make something better in the world if we don't first notice where that is. If we don't notice that our little voice tells us that we're not pretty, if we don't notice that our little voice tells us I'll never be as successful as that person, if we don't notice that, someone on our street needs help because we're living life like this. And it's what we talked about early in this call, right? In this podcast, like we're often just bumping through life, reacting, not responding purposely, right? So noticing gives us an opportunity to pay attention to what's working and not working, what is missing. So like in entrepreneurship, noticing is finding the gap, right? An entrepreneur notices a gap of what's missing in the world or what could happen or some brilliant idea. Every patent comes from somebody noticing something that could either be better or is missing.
Yeah.
And so, but we can't be any of those things if we don't notice it first.
Yeah.
So, some people call it wake up. I'm like, okay, call it wake up, call it whatever you want to call it, but just start to notice whether or not you purposely shut your alarm off in the morning and go, it's a great morning, it's a new day, or you're like, it's another morning, it's another day, right? Like we're choosing that.
Yeah.
Right. So notice first, and we notice where the gaps are, what can be improved, and then what are the feelings associated with that? If I feel every day like I'm not special, I feel defeated. Right? Like, how do we feel if we don't believe that we have any worth or that we're not good enough to be someone's friend? Yeah. So how does that make us feel? Yeah. And then what behaviors are associated with it? So Meg, if you think no one will like you as a friend, then we feel what? Unimportant, unseen, unheard, devalued. And then what are our behaviors that are associated with those feelings?
Like anger, upset,
depression, moping, isolation, or aggression. You're not going to like me. I'll give you every reason not to like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awareness, is notice. And then choose is what we want instead. Choose is the intention. If I have a situation where I don't think positively about myself, what do I want instead? And if I had what I want instead, how would I feel? And what would my behaviors be? I would feel confident. And my behaviors would be, I will raise my hand in class. I will talk to someone new, right? Like, so it all goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
The tricky thing for me, so notice and choose what's missing or a gap, what we want instead are both cerebral. They're both in our head.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. So choose is intention, like a New Year's resolution. So many people don't even write them anymore because they write them every year. They get to the end of the year. They feel bad that they never got them done. So now why would I even write them? Because I'm not going to do them. So we give up before we even get started. Because New Year's resolutions are intention, which is choose.
Mm-hmm.
But results never happen unless we act.
Yep.
Choosing an intention, intention without action is a fantasy. It's a fantasy that anything will change if we don't act on it. So in action, it creates the results that we want in our life. And it also gives us an opportunity to stand in responsibility for not creating what we want if we don't, which is the ouch. Like, not all of us want to look at that, right? It's like, yeah, I didn't lose that weight because I didn't actually do anything to lose it. So there's a little bit of like, sometimes people are like, Woodley, don't point this out, because as soon as I know, then I have to think about that, which I think is a good thing. Right? So ACT is the very specific action steps that I can take today consciously to create what I want and choose, and eliminate what feels bad and notice.
Yeah.
And that's notice, choose, act. And it could be, we use it for classroom redirect, classroom management. We use it for personal insight and goal development. We use it for people looking to go up the ladder at work or just have better friendships. Like, it just is a process that any age, we teach it to kindergartners, and we do it with corporate execs who are in their, golden years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been lucky enough to see notice, choose, act being implemented, and it's such a simple concept, but it's incredible how overwhelmingly positive the results are. And that's why I love that it's so simplified, because it makes it achievable, it makes it relatable. We can all understand those words and relate to them and understand how the process works. And it makes me so hopeful for the future to see, especially so many young people becoming leaders and taking ownership of their own actions and really showing up positively in the world. And like many youths are today, and like you very kindly were vulnerable enough to share about your own childhood, I unfortunately suffered from a lot of anxiety growing up. And I felt so alone in that, because at the time I didn't know how to name it, and I wasn't ever given the tools to manage it. And as wonderful as the education system can be, I know from my own experience, our school curriculum was absolutely jammed packed with subjects that were supposed to help us navigate the world, but none of those subjects ever focused on self-reflection or personal understanding. So what does All It Takes add to the school programming, and particularly what tools can All It Takes provide to help mitigate this ever increasing mental health crisis, I guess?
Well, with the pandemic, you're right. It was a ever increasing mental health crisis before the pandemic. And now the projections are we're a minimum of 3 years after we end the pandemic of really dealing with the fallout, whether it's immediate fallout emotionally or PTSD and shows up in a year. So, again, what we believe is that the soft skills, those skills that we teach, are the skills we, call it emotional intelligence, or in schools, we call it social emotional literacy. So those are the skills that help us get through the times when we have an option to either go through and rise from, or go through and fall apart. And, the anxiety that you speak of as a child was me, right? So high anxiety. Don't call on me. Don't call on me. Please don't call on me. Anything for a teacher not to call on me. And really what I didn't know is that I could be okay. And you're right. The education system has been about supposedly the tools to get us through life. But I'm always saying, if you don't have the skills to embrace the skills you've learned that are, science, just use science, then what are you going to do with the science?
Yes.
I think about STEM. We do a lot of STEM here in the United States, which is science and math, and you probably are too. And there's a lot of STEM organizations for girls. So a lot of funding in really bringing girls up to embrace their capability of being in the science and math field, which has been primarily masculine and male, right? But here's the thing, not all of them are having great success getting enough girls to want to do it. And I'm like, that's because the girls don't believe they can, right? It's not because they're not interested. It's because they don't know that being interested will serve them.
Yep.
That's what I believe, right? So in order for girls to embrace the amazing amount of STEM resources out there for girls, funded well, a lot of them are funded well, the girls first have to see themselves in that role as possible.
Yeah.
If they're suffering great anxiety and they can't speak to it, and people just say, you can do it, that's not enough. I have to really know in my being that I can do it. Not having just someone say, you're fine, you're smart, you got this. That doesn't transfer to believing I'm fine, I'm smart, I've got this. Meg, just get over it. It'll be fine. Did not change your anxiety in the moment, right?
Nope.
Yeah, you're so smart. Yeah. And so I really believe that we have to teach those skills from inside. Like we have to give them the access to embrace those skills inside out.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying it, the golden rule, do unto others or treat others the way you want to be treated. Knowing that as a 5-year-old does not change how we live into that.
Yeah.
Right.
And how does All It Takes work with schools to help start implementing this learning and these tools?
So we work with schools right now. It's all virtual, like everybody's world. But we work with staff, we work with students, and we work with parents and to teach the skills. So if we're working with kids, it's direct skill teaching and then experiencing so that they actually integrate the skill in real time and go, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
And then we work with staff, and that's actually been the area where we've grown the most in the last few years, and especially over the last year during the pandemic, because I believe, and you mentioned it earlier, youth influencers. If we work with youth for 5 minutes, 50 minutes, 6 hours a day, or we parent them and they're ours 24/7, except school or whatever, we have an obligation. I believe we do. We have a responsibility, no matter how short or long we work with kids, to help them embrace and understand and use the soft skills.
Yep.
The SEL, the emotional intelligence skills. Lots of people do finger wagging, Meg, it's a parent's job. I hear teachers say, well, parents should have sent their kids with these skills. And I hear parents going, I'm too busy. I can't do this. I need your help, teachers. And then I hear administrators, trying to make the balance between the two. And the kids are kind of like this on their phones, right? Completely disconnected from all of it because there's so much conversation. So I really believe that we need to learn how to be a positive, skilled youth influencer. If you're Boy Scout leader, you're a piano teacher, you are a soccer coach, you teach elementary, school, it's our job. So that means we have to get good at it.
Yeah. And
there's where it's a little harder. Kids are actually more open to learning new skills than a lot of adults are.
Yeah. From my experience, I agree. It's the big kids that can be the most difficult. And talking about difficult things, 2020 and 2021 has certainly been a year and a half for the history books, with the entire world facing the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's affected everyone and in different ways. And I know before, face-to-face connection was such an integral part of your work. So how has All It Takes developed its programming over the last year and a half? Please, could you also tell us a little bit more about the incredible films, A Trusted Space and Angst that you've recently been a part of?
We, pandemic hit. We had our last face-to-face program at Canyon Creek in March 5 through 8. Of course, I remember the dates. I'll never forget the dates because it's like a trauma moment.
Yeah.
And it was the weekend before the Friday California shutdown. And so we had this one beautiful brand new program where we brought youth influencers and youth together to work together and independent and together and independent. It was so amazing. And we were so excited because we had all this interest in more, like, oh my gosh, I need to bring my whole staff and kids. And then the next weekend, shut down. Right. So I think about a week of panic, like I felt like I was spinning for a week. And then there was just no more time to spin. Like, I'm a doer and there's work to be done. So what do I need to learn to do it different? So we, like everyone else, went into a virtual world. At first, it wasn't as successful and it was okay. And we were providing services, but it was hard to get kids involved. And we were finding more interest from adults. Like, what do I do with these kids? We're under one roof. We wrote a series, a web series called Under One Roof. Literally 6 sessions of how do we live with these people who are under our skin, under our net every minute. Yeah. So that was really fun. And then in January, prior to the pandemic hitting, I'd been associated with this film called Angst on anxiety. Did you see it, Meg?
I have seen it. Yeah.
You've seen Angst. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Back when we were showing it. Yeah. And it was so powerful that the next day I called the distributor and said, how do I get involved? How can All It Takes continue to show this film? What does it take to do that, et cetera? So then I was actually, my kind of people. The person I was talking to is like, you have to meet our executive. You have to meet our producer who made this film, the filmmaker. She's amazing, an Emmy-winning documentary filmmaker. And so in February, I met Karen Gornick. We had dinner and hit it off like sisters. And then pandemic, angst. And on June 3rd, we're still not reaching enough people that we want to reach, right? We're still not there. But we're still working and we're scrambling and we're doing everything we can in a whole new world, just like everyone, just like all of you are. And I got a text from a local school district. And she sent me a text that said, please make a film on trauma. More than ever before, our teachers need to understand the impact of it. And if they have to pay to attend a workshop, they'll never understand.
Yeah.
That was on June 3rd. I sent it to Karen, my new friend and movie partner.
Thank you, universe.
And she said, let's do it. She found gracious, generous filmmakers who were the filmmakers on Angst. And we got to work and we filmed a powerful docu-training focused on teachers. But really, if you're a youth influencer, you're a teacher. Because you have every minute as an impact with the kids you serve. So everyone's a teacher of all the kids that are in our universe. And so we made this film, and on September 21, we delivered it. It didn't have any funding. It had no marketing. And as of right now, it is airing through our website. To 26 countries, 45 states.
Wow.
And the youth influencers who are watching it serve over 2 million students. That was a recent milestone.
Oh my goodness.
We knew it was going to be good. We didn't know it would resonate with the hearts and emotions of people across the globe, across cultures, across social economic status. We didn't know. I knew it was going to be good because it was a powerful message, but it's a desperate message.
Yeah.
And it's meeting people where they are. And so we went from serving about 25,000 kids a year to right now in the last 4 months to 2 million.
Yes.
And that's because it matters.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what a beautiful documentary or film you've created. I watched it myself and I was getting emotional because we were talking about it earlier, you really do get across the emotion of everyone involved, and like how important it is to be recognizing this trauma and working with it. And you might not have had the financial funding, but it was certainly funded by love. I can tell you that it had love in abundance.
Love, commitment, expertise. Every expert, I mean, we have experts in education in the United States in this film. We went to their homes in the summer with masks, outdoors, looking for the right lighting. They let us into their homes because it was so needed.
Yeah.
And they are all like, when are you going to do the next one? What film is next? We want to be a part of it because it's something to be proud of. And the fact that we offer it at no cost to anyone who wants to see it was our commitment, and it continues to be. And Chris, who sent that text, is right. People need the most important information to be offered to them for free. Teachers already don't make enough money. Finances are so tough for so many of us right now that we definitely are committed to not having finances be a reason we don't get the skill set to help our kids and each other along through the pandemic and far into the future beyond it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recommend anyone listening to go to the All It Takes website and check out A Trusted Space, because it really is just a incredible resource, and you've got such a powerful message across. And all credit to you and your team as well for being so innovative and creating so many positive online resources with no funding and at the last minute. It really is a gift, and also demonstrates that All It Takes continues to go from strength to strength. So how do you hope All It Takes will continue to evolve in the future?
So where we're at now is this blissful place. As hard as the pandemic has been, it has been rewarding for us in many ways, because now we have this whole way to serve. And we're looking forward to going back and being with kids and teachers in person, right? Can't wait to hug you again someday, Meg. But at the same time, we're able to produce these online virtual trainings around A Trusted Space. Not everybody knows how to make relationships great. We think we do, but we don't necessarily know how to do that, right? So we're training kids, like we used to train kids. Now we're training educators and parents, and, in these soft skills that they can embrace, which then they can model for kids and then help them learn it too. And that's just been amazing because we can serve so many more people when it's virtual. So that's a good thing. And so what we're looking to do is make another film. So this film is really relevant right now. But as we kind of grow up out of the pandemic, knock wood that's sooner than later for all of us globally, that there's a next film that handles just trauma itself and really recognizes too that so many of our kids went into this traumatizing time already traumatized. Our underserved communities, the equity issues, those issues were already there, creating so much pain and harm and a lack of access for thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So we want to address that in a future film. And with the same kind of passion of, we can fix this. Hope lives, right? Hope lives. And we do have an obligation to not only fix what's happened with the pandemic, but to move out of it and really into a whole new world that eliminates what the traumas were because of equity issues and access issues, education issues prior to the pandemic. So we're really looking forward to like a catapult into global service, whether it's in person or virtual. And that seems to be happening in ways that are just unfathomable and so exciting.
Yes, So exciting. I cannot wait for this catapult to take off. And oh, Lori, I am so grateful for your work and the positivity you and your team continue to put out into the world. The work you are doing is life-changing. So I would love for more people to be inspired by your incredible work. So how can people get involved with All It Takes? Where can they find you? And are there any upcoming projects that people need to know about?
So find us at allittakes.org. If you want specific, you can go allittakes.org. It'll get you to a trusted space. The film is free. Also, a clinically research-based free curriculum for teachers or parents, or to work with their kids in their classrooms or in their virtual or in-person settings, to like the concrete skills. How do we build the relationship first so that learning can happen better? So that's really exciting. And all of that's free at a trustedspace.org or allittakes.org. Can get there either way. And watch us on allittakes.org for upcoming classes. We're going to be doing, we're actually working with the Indigenous people up at Standing Rock right now on a program that isn't an invite to everyone, but we're doing a 17-week virtual program, bringing people together. The isolation and loneliness has been really clinically significant for so many people, and we're changing that. It is amazing how much we really can make a difference on Zoom. We really can.
You'd have thought it.
Exactly, not me. So our trainings are just listed on the website as we have them. I think right now we just finished a couple, and we don't have one for people to sign up for. But we will have sign in, come into the All It Takes global community, and have a conversation about how relationships are the difference makers. Relationships are how we heal, and most of us can heal with trusted relationships. Some of us will need some clinical support. That's okay. But really, if we all get into this power of purposeful, loving relationships, learning to listen more than talk, learning to be curious more than tell, we're going to have a other side of the pandemic that looks more beautiful than life ever has before. That's what I believe.
Yes, and I'm so hopeful for it. So please go to the All It Takes website. I'll make sure we put in the show notes as well, links for that as well, so people can keep an eye on that. And thank you so much for all the wisdom and knowledge you've shared today, Lori. You know, I could talk to you all day, and I appreciate your mentorship. So you've shared so much wisdom today, but do you have any lasting words of advice that have served you well that you would like to finish on?
Life is working for us, not against us.
Boom.
Look at life as your ally, not your enemy.
I love it.
That's what gets me through.
I love it. And I think that those words might get us all through this year. So, Lori, you are the best. Thank you so much for your time and energy today. Thank you for the continuous work you do to create positive change in the world and empower people to not only show up for themselves, but to also show up for others. And thank you for being my kind of person.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. It has been a blessing to share time and space and laughter with you, Meg. Thank you.
You're so welcome.